Good morning, everybody. Trip and Sister here. We are at the Choctaw headquarters. Choctaw is a um, First Nations tribe that settled here in Oklahoma a long time ago. My grandmother and her mother were Choctaw Indians, and I don't know a whole lot about them. My grandmother's mother passed away from scarlet fever when she was 8 years old, and her father abandoned her on the street, so she grew up in orphanages. And so we don't know a whole lot about my heritage on my mother's side of the family, except that she was Choctaw. So we are here, and we're going to go into the museum, which is there. And we will see if we can find out some heritage and culture and all that good stuff. Anyhow, if they allow us to take pictures, we will, and hope you will enjoy this adventure with us.
Hello all, Striking Viking, welcoming you to the capital of the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw are a proud people, and many of them served in the armed forces in the various armed conflicts that the nation has been involved in. These slides depict the description of parts of the nation. Feel free to stop anywhere along the way if you need to take time to read them. The Choctaw Capitol building was started construction in the 1880s and was built on site with brick fired on site in brick kilns that ran 24/7. All the timber was milled here as well. This is a beautiful statue which is outside the Capitol building, which shows a Choctaw warrior and the Great Seal of the Choctaw Nation. This gives you a little bit more of an idea about TUSHKA, which is the capital of the nation. This details the chief, Pushmataha, whose name means "I have left my childhood behind." He died in Washington, D.C. and was accorded the funeral of a field marshal general and was buried in the Congressional Cemetery. This is the Choctaw Court, and they administer their own justice. This is a mural which shows their forcible removal from their ancestral lands in Mississippi along the Trail of Tears to their new lands in Oklahoma. It's a fascinating museum. We spent quite a few hours here learning about the Choctaw people and their culture, and we both of us came away with a lot more knowledge about it. This is the congressional meeting of the initial Choctaw meeting when the tribe was set up. They're very accomplished basket weavers. They used reeds that grew along the river's edge to weave baskets of complex patterns and of various different types for use in their everyday life. And a lot of those baskets still exist today, even though they were made over 150 years ago. Some of the basket work is really amazing and very beautiful, the time that they've put into it. This shows a Choctaw village as it was back along their days in the Mississippi, and it has a fish trap. As you can see, there's a lady weaving baskets and some shelters that they used against the weather. Chatasia Hoke, which means, yes, I'm Choctaw. You may have seen the movie Code Talkers, which was in the Second World War, but the actual Code Talkers started in the First World War with some Choctaw tribesmen who were serving in the army. They tried to find out what nationality these people were from. And of course, they weren't told, the Germans weren't told what nationality they were. So the code was truly indecipherable. They also maintained their own legal services. They had a troop called the Light Horsemen, who rode with nothing more than a pistol, a rifle, and whatever they could keep in their possible bag, usually some pemmican or some hardtack. And they were charged with keeping the peace and also administering justice. Usually, most cases of infringement were settled with a whipping, although hanging was not unheard of. Life on the frontier was hard, but you can see that they took great pride in their manner of dress. So they used the tools that they had brought with them, plus the tools that they made in Oklahoma, to rebuild their society. And they placed a great emphasis on education. They said education is what will lift our people. Outside, they have a replica of an ancient Choctaw village, surrounded by pilings driven into the ground, into a trench in the ground for protection, and a number of brush arbors and huts built in the old fashion. This is to remind the people of where they have come from, and also to offer visitors a look into ancient Choctaw life. Every year they have a large festival which takes place on Labor Day, and as many as 100,000 people descend upon Choctaw territory. We noticed that the grounds themselves were manicured very nicely, planted with flowers and trees, and the mowing was all done so that they were getting ready for this festival which is to come. Here's another look back at the Capitol building. It's truly an imposing structure when you realize it was built on site by hand. These are the pavilions where they have the ball courts. They have stickball games, they have dancing, they have storytelling, and they also have a very large RV park, well over 300 spaces, all of which are currently reserved. This is the cemetery, which was given to the Choctaw people by the people who own the land. And as you can see, their influence extends out onto the highway. They have a very well maintained, exceptionally well kept, clean, and bright facilities. And that concludes our visit to the Choctaw capital.